I didn't want to take the DNA test. Seriously. It was supposed to be a stupid little thing couples do for fun. Something you laugh about, maybe learn your 5% Scandinavian, then forget about it. Instead, 3 weeks before my wedding, that test destroyed my entire life. My name is Daniel. I'm 29. Until recently I thought I had a pretty normal life. Stable job. Small rented house. A nervous dog that barks at leaves. And a woman I loved enough to marry. Her name is Claire. We had been together for almost 4 years, and if you asked anyone who knew us, they would tell you the same thing: we were solid. No constant drama. No screaming matches. Just two people slowly building a life together. Claire was the kind of person people instantly liked. Friendly. Funny. Warm. My mom loved her. My friends loved her. Even my co-workers would say things like, "Man, you got lucky with her." And honestly, I believed that. The only thing that ever felt a little strange was that Claire almost never talked about her childhood. She mentioned her mom sometimes. Said her dad wasn't really around. She had an aunt she liked. But every time conversations got too deep about family or the past, she would change the subject. I assumed it was trauma. Some people just don't have happy childhoods. I respected that and didn't push. Fast forward to wedding planning. Anyone who's planned a wedding knows it slowly turns your brain into soup. Venues, food tastings, seating charts, relatives complaining about invitations. It's chaos. One night we were sitting on the couch, half watching TV while arguing about flower arrangements, when a commercial for Ancestry DNA tests came on. Claire laughed and said, "Imagine finding out you're secretly related to someone you hate." I joked back, "Imagine I find out I'm related to my boss." She looked at the screen for a moment and then said, "We should do it." I shrugged. Sure. Why not? Before I even finished the sentence she already had her phone out ordering 2 kits. Looking back now, that should have been my first warning. The kits arrived a few days later. We did them together at the kitchen counter. Just 2 little plastic tubes and a lot of awkward spitting. Claire kept watching me while I labeled mine. "Make sure you do it right," she said. I laughed. "What, you think I'll mess up my own DNA?" She smiled, but something about the way she watched me felt strange. I couldn't explain it at the time. We mailed them the next morning. A few days after that I woke up around 2 in the morning and realized Claire wasn't in bed. I found her sitting in the living room on the floor, scrolling on her phone with the brightness turned all the way down. She had clearly been crying. When I asked what was wrong she quickly wiped her face and said it was just wedding stress. She said she didn't want to wake me. I held her for a while until she calmed down. At the time I thought she was just overwhelmed. Now I know that wasn't the reason. 2 weeks passed. The wedding was getting closer. Final suit fitting. Final guest list. People flying in. Then one afternoon at work I got the email. "Your DNA results are ready." I originally planned to wait and open them with Claire that night. But curiosity won. I figured I'd just glance at the results quickly, then we could look through everything together later. So I opened the website at my desk. The first part looked normal. Ethnicity percentages. Random regions. Nothing interesting. Then I clicked the section that showed DNA matches. And that's when my entire world collapsed. At the very top of the list was Claire. According to the test, Claire and I share 50% of our DNA. The kind of genetic match that only exists between a parent and a child. I stared at the screen for a long time, convinced it had to be a glitch. I refreshed the page. Same result. 50% shared DNA. Parent and child. My hand started shaking so badly I almost dropped my phone. I checked the sample number. It was mine. I checked the account. It was mine. Everything was correct. Except the result. I ended up sitting in my car outside my office for nearly an hour trying to understand what I was looking at. There were only 2 explanations. Either the test was wrong. Or the woman I was about to marry was somehow directly related to me. I called Claire. She didn't answer. I texted her. "Hey, quick question about the DNA test. Mine says something weird. Can we look at it together tonight?" She replied a few minutes later. What weird thing? I stared at the phone for a long time before typing back. Probably just a glitch. But yeah, something weird. She didn't answer again for almost 10 minutes. Then she sent one short message. Okay. We'll talk tonight. When I got home that evening, Claire was already sitting at the kitchen table with her laptop open. She had made tea. She looked calm. But her hands were shaking. So, she said quietly. What did your results say? I didn't sit down. I just looked at her and asked the only question that mattered. Why does the DNA test say you and I share 50% of our DNA? Claire froze. Not confused. Not surprised. Just frozen. Then she slowly whispered one word. Okay. My stomach dropped. No denial. No, that's impossible. Just acceptance. I felt cold all over. Claire, I said. Explain this. Right now. Tears started forming in her eyes. I didn't know for sure, she said quietly. I only suspected. Suspected what? I asked. She wiped her face and looked at the table before speaking again. I think, we have the same father. My brain struggled to process the sentence. That would make us half-siblings, I said slowly. But the test says parent and child. Claire shook her head. Then she said something that made my blood run cold. My father wasn't just my father. Her voice broke. When I was young, he hurt me. I felt like the air disappeared from the room. She kept talking through tears. I got pregnant. My mother forced me to give the baby up. We moved away and nobody ever talked about it again. I couldn't move. I couldn't think. Claire finally looked up at me with red, terrified eyes. I never knew what happened to the baby, she whispered. Then she said the sentence that shattered everything. I think, you're him. I couldn't process what she had just said. The words were in the air, but my brain refused to accept them. I think, you're him. I stood there in the kitchen staring at her like she had just spoken another language. My voice finally came out, but it sounded strange, like it belonged to someone else. That's impossible. Claire didn't argue. She didn't defend herself. She just kept crying quietly. I didn't know, she said again. I swear I didn't know. My heart was pounding so hard I could feel it in my throat. You're telling me, I said slowly, that you think the baby you gave up, is me? She nodded once. The room felt smaller by the second. Then why, I asked, did you order the DNA tests? That question made her freeze again. She looked down at her hands for a long time before answering. Because a few months ago I started noticing things. What things? You, she said quietly. That answer made no sense. Me? I said. She nodded. You look like him. My stomach twisted. Him who? My father. For a moment I thought I might actually pass out. She kept talking, almost like she had been holding this inside for years and the words were finally escaping. When we first started dating I didn't notice it. I didn't want to notice it. But the longer we were together, the more it bothered me. I felt anger rising in my chest. You waited 4 years to say something. I wasn't sure, she said quickly. I kept telling myself it was just my imagination. I ran my hands through my hair and started pacing across the kitchen. This is insane, I muttered. Claire watched me carefully, like she was afraid I might break something. You have to understand, she said. I was 16. My mom made everything disappear. We moved to another city. She handled the adoption through a private lawyer. I never saw the baby again. The word baby made my chest tighten. You never tried to find him? I asked. Her face collapsed again. I did, she whispered. Years later. But there were no records I could access. Silence filled the kitchen. My mind started racing through memories. My childhood. My parents. Every birthday. Every family photo. Every story I had been told about where I came from. Something suddenly hit me. Wait. Claire looked up. You said your mom handled the adoption. She nodded. Do you know who adopted the baby? No. You never saw the paperwork? No. A horrible idea slowly formed in my mind. Claire, when was this? She hesitated. Then she said the year. The same year I was born. My legs felt weak again. Where? I asked. She whispered the name of a small town. It was less than 40 miles from where I grew up. A cold wave ran through my body. Claire, I said carefully, the hospital listed on my birth certificate is in that town. Her face went pale. Neither of us spoke for a long time. Then she quietly asked the question we were both afraid of. Are you adopted? I had never thought about that question in my entire life. My parents had never mentioned it. But suddenly I remembered something strange. When I was a kid, I once asked my mom why I didn't look like either of my parents. She had laughed and said, genetics are weird. At the time I believed her. Now I wasn't so sure. I don't know, I said honestly. Claire looked like she might collapse. If you are, she whispered, then this test might be right. My brain tried to fight the idea. No. There has to be another explanation. But deep down I knew something was very wrong. I grabbed my phone and opened the DNA results again. Claire slowly stood up and walked behind me. Together we looked at the screen. 50% shared DNA. Parent and child. The result hadn't changed. Claire covered her mouth. I never wanted this, she whispered. I never wanted to hurt you. I turned toward her. Hurt me? I said. My voice cracked. We were about to get married. Tears rolled down her face again. I know. Another terrifying thought suddenly hit me. If you suspected this, I said slowly, why didn't you stop the wedding? She looked at me like the answer should have been obvious. Because I loved you. The words hung in the air. And I was hoping I was wrong. Silence filled the kitchen again. Then she whispered something that made my chest tighten even more. But if this is true, we need to know the whole truth. I looked at her. What do you mean? Her voice was barely audible. We need to talk to your parents. For a moment I thought I had misheard her. We need to talk to your parents. The sentence hung in the air like something dangerous. My first reaction was anger. No, I said immediately. Claire looked at me carefully. Daniel, if this test is right. It's not right, I snapped. But even as I said it, I knew I didn't believe my own words. Claire didn't argue. She just stood there quietly, like she understood exactly what was happening inside my head. Look, she said softly, either the test is wrong, or someone has been lying to you your whole life. That sentence hit harder than anything else. Because there was only one group of people who could have lied about something this big. My parents. I sat down at the kitchen table and stared at the floor. My childhood started replaying in my head like an old movie. Family dinners. Christmas mornings. My dad teaching me how to drive. My mom yelling at me for staying out too late. All of it suddenly felt unstable. Like the foundation under my life had cracks I had never noticed. Claire slowly sat across from me. I know this is a lot, she said quietly. That's the understatement of the century, I muttered. Neither of us spoke for a while. Then I asked the question that had been stuck in my mind since the test result appeared. Claire, how old were you? She looked down. 16. My stomach turned. And your father? Her face tightened immediately. I don't talk to him anymore. Is he alive? Yes. Does your mother know about all of this? She knew back then, Claire said quietly. She's the one who forced the adoption. Something inside me snapped. So there are two people walking around right now who might know the truth about my entire existence. Claire didn't answer. Because she knew the answer was yes. I grabbed my phone again and opened the DNA results. Claire's name was still at the top. 50% shared DNA. Parent and child. I rubbed my face with both hands. This can't be real. Claire leaned forward slightly. There's another possibility. I looked at her. What? Maybe you aren't adopted, she said. Then how would this test say we're parent and child? She hesitated. DNA tests sometimes show that result when someone is a half-sibling but the system doesn't have enough other relatives to compare. I immediately opened the website again and checked the details. The percentage didn't lie. 50%. That wasn't a cousin. That wasn't a half-sibling. That was direct. My chest felt tight. There's only one way to know, Claire said. I knew what she was going to say before the words left her mouth. You need to ask your parents. The idea terrified me more than anything else. Because if they confirmed it, my entire life would suddenly have a different beginning. And that meant the people I trusted most had been hiding something enormous. I stood up and started pacing the kitchen. What if they don't know? I asked. Claire frowned. What do you mean? What if the adoption was private? What if my parents didn't know where I came from? Claire shook her head slowly. If your mother helped hide the pregnancy, there's a chance she might know exactly where the baby went. That thought made my skin crawl. Then we should talk to her first, Claire said. I stopped pacing. You want to go talk to the woman who forced you to give up your child? Claire looked exhausted. I don't want to. But she might have the answers. I looked at the calendar on the wall. 3 weeks. That's how long we had until the wedding. 3 weeks until I was supposed to stand in front of my family and promise my life to this woman. A woman who might be my sister. Or worse. The thought made my stomach twist again. Claire noticed the way I looked at the calendar. You're thinking about the wedding, she said quietly. Of course I am. Neither of us said the obvious thing out loud. Because if the DNA test was right, the wedding wasn't just impossible. It was unthinkable. Claire wiped her eyes. I never wanted to ruin your life. I looked at her. You didn't ruin it. My voice cracked slightly. But someone did. Another long silence passed between us. Finally I picked up my phone again. What are you doing? Claire asked. I opened my contacts and scrolled to one name. Mom. My thumb hovered over the call button. If I pressed it, there would be no going back. The truth would start coming out. And my life might never look the same again. Claire watched me carefully. Daniel, you don't have to do this tonight. But I knew if I waited, I would lose the courage. I pressed the call button. The phone rang. Once. Twice. 3 times. Then my mother answered. Hey sweetheart, she said cheerfully. Everything okay? For a second I almost hung up. But then I looked at Claire. And I remembered the DNA test. My voice came out quiet. Mom. I need to ask you something important. She laughed lightly. You sound serious. What's going on? I took a slow breath. Then I asked the question that would change everything. Was I adopted? My mother didn't answer immediately. The silence on the phone lasted only a few seconds, but it felt like an hour. Daniel, why would you ask that? She finally said. Her voice sounded different. Tight. Careful. My heart started pounding again. Mom, I said quietly, please just tell me the truth. Another pause. Then I heard her sigh. Yes. The word hit me like a punch to the chest. Yes, you were adopted. I closed my eyes. Claire covered her mouth with both hands. My mother continued speaking, slowly, like she had been holding this secret for decades. Your father and I couldn't have children. A private lawyer arranged the adoption. We were told the birth mother was a teenage girl who wanted the baby to have a better life. I felt the room spinning. Did you know who she was? I asked. No, my mom said. We were never given names. My voice barely worked. Mom, the DNA test says the woman I'm about to marry shares 50% of my DNA. The other end of the phone went completely silent. Then my mother whispered. Oh my God. Claire started crying again. I think she might be the one who gave birth to me, I said. My mother didn't speak for a long time. When she finally did, her voice was shaking. Daniel, listen to me. You are my son. Nothing will ever change that. But that wasn't the question that mattered. I looked at Claire sitting across from me, tears running down her face. The woman I loved. The woman I was supposed to marry in 3 weeks. The woman who might also be my biological mother. My voice came out quiet. So what do we do now? Claire wiped her eyes and looked at me. We face the truth, she said. The wedding was cancelled the next morning. Not because we stopped caring about each other. But because sometimes the truth changes everything. And love, no matter how real it feels, can't survive a secret like that. If this story shocked you, subscribe for real stories about betrayal, secrets, and courtroom karma. And watch the video on your screen. It's just as insane.